What's up, radio fans? Big Al here on this Saturday, August 18th, 2023, and we're continuing reissues of the AM and F radio stations across the country, and we're headed to the third stations in the region. And then once we get to the FM side of the dial, I'll be breaking that down into three separate parts. Now, they have an extensive non-commercial band on FM. I think there's like 50 stations. I'll be doing that in part one of the FM reissue. And then we'll do the bottom half of the commercial band on FM in part two. And then we'll wrap things up with the higher end of the commercial band on FM. So taking a look at the Chicagoland area, there is a total of about 150 stations on both AM and FM, including 37 stations broadcasting in high definition, really 36, because I have a couple of these stations listed twice. So you have 45 stations on AM and 104 on FM. And this is not just Chicago. We're also covering Aurora, DeKalb County, Joliet, Waukegan, and Northwest Indiana. So this took a while to at least get the AM stations out. But I have all the information for all the AM stations written down. So let's waste no more time and jump right into this. This is the August 2023 reissue of the AM radio stations in the Chicagoland area. And we're going to kick things off at 560, which is WIND Chicago. AM 560, The Answer. News, opinion, insight. This is a conservative talk station with affiliations with Fox News Radio, the Salem Radio Network, Premier Networks, Town Hall News, which is heard at the top of the hour, likewise with Fox News Radio. And this is also the Chicago area affiliate of the Northern Illinois Huskies. So primarily their football games will be heard on AM 560 The Answer. And I think their men's basketball games are also heard here too. WIND signed on as WJKS on August 16th, 1927, and would become WIND in 1933. AM 560, The Answer, has a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting full-time at 5,000 watts. Their studios are located at 25 Northwest Point Boulevard, Suite 400 in Elk Grove Village. And their transmitter is near the intersection of I-94 and Indiana State Route 912 near the Little Calumet River in Griffin, Indiana. WIND AM 560, The Answer, is owned by the Salem Media Group and licensed to Salem Media of Illinois, LLC. Next up on 640 is WMFN, Peotone, Illinois. Chicago's BIN 640, because truth matters. That's one of their slogans. The other one is your home for 24-hour news. This is, of course, a Black-oriented news station affiliated with iHeartRadio's Black Information Network. WMFN signed on the air in 1990 as WBMX in Zeeland, Michigan, which is in the Grand Rapids radio market. The station became WROR in 1991, WISZ in 1995, and later that year it would become their current call sign, WMFN, as a sports station at the time. 640 would move from Grand Rapids to Chicago in 2014. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 4,400 watts during daytime hours, 1,600 watts during nighttime hours. Their studios are located at 934 West 138th Street in Riverdale, Illinois. The station's transmitter is on the same tower used by WIND, near the I-94 Indiana State Route 912 interchange near the Little Calumet River in Griffin, Indiana. WMFN is owned by Birace Broadcasting Corporation, but operated by iHeartMedia for its Black Information Network. Next up on 670 is one of 5 Class A clear channel stations in Chicago, and that's WSCR Chicago. Sports Radio 670 The Score, Chicago's #1 sports station. That said, this is a sports format. They are the Chicago affiliate of CBS Sports Radio, the BetQL Audio Network, and Westwood One Sports, which means Sunday night, Monday night, and Thursday night football, as well as the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl, are all heard on 670 The Score. All right, this station is also the flagship station for the Chicago Bulls, so you'll hear all their games here. They're also the flagship station of the Chicago Cubs, the DePaul Blue Demons, and they are Chicago's affiliate for the Illinois Fighting Illini. So you'll hear University of Illinois football and men's hoops on The Score. WSCR is the oldest radio station in Chicago, signing on the air on April 12, 1922 as WGU. Of course, the station would become NBC-owned WMAQ AM in October of 1922. In its later days, WMAQ had an all-news format rivaling WBBM, and then they switched to sports and became WSCR in 2000. WSCR, as I said, is the first of 5 Class A clear channel stations in Chicago, broadcasting full-time at 50,000 watts. Their studios are located at 2 Prudential Plaza at 180 North Stetson Avenue, Suite 1100 in the Chicago Loop. And they have 2 transmitters. They have a main transmitter and an auxiliary transmitter, and both are located off of East Army Trail Road in Glendale Heights. The main transmitter is shared with sister station WBBM AM. WSCR 670 The Score is owned by Odyssey Incorporated and licensed to Odyssey License LLC, and their programming is simulcast on WBMX 104.3 FM HD2 in Chicago. And again, this is the city's oldest radio station. 720 is another clear channel station, and that's WGN Chicago. 720 WGN, Chicago's very own. This is a news talk format, affiliations with News Nation, and the flagship station for both the Chicago Blackhawks and the Northwestern Wildcats. So you'll hear Wildcats football and men's basketball, as well as Blackhawks hockey on 720 WGN. This is the second oldest radio station in Chicago, signing on as WDAP on May 19, 1922, and became WGN in 1924. The station identified as WGN-WLIB in 1928 until they returned exclusively to WGN in 1933. This is the second of 5 Class A clear channel stations in Chicago, broadcasting full-time at 50,000 watts. Studios are located at 303 East Wacker Service Drive in Chicago, and their transmitter, both main and auxiliary, is located off Martingale Road or Illinois Route 53 in Elk Grove Village, Illinois. WGN is the only radio station that is owned by the Nexstar Media Group, which also owns WGN TV Channel 9. Licensee is Tribune Media Company. All right. 750 takes us into Northwest Indiana, and that's WNDZ Portage, Indiana. Access Radio Chicago is what this station is known as. They air multi-language brokered programming on this station. They signed on the air on May 13th, 1987. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting during daytime hours at 15,000 watts. Studios are located at 6012 South Pulaski Road in Chicago. Their transmitter is at 6750 Robbins Road in the city's or in the station's city of license, Portage, Indiana. WNDZ is owned by NewsWeb Corporation and licensed to WNDZ LLC. WNDZ is a daytime-only station and by FCC law must sign off the air at local sunset on AM 750. All right. Next up is 780 AM and 105.9 FM channel 290, broadcasted in high definition. And this is the all-news simulcast of WBBM AM Chicago on 780 and WCFS FM Elmwood Park, Illinois on 105.9 channel 290, which broadcasts in HD. They're known as News Radio 105.9 WBBM. On both stations and on 105.9-1 is All News Radio. On 105.9 HD2 is The Bet Chicago, which is sports gambling. WBBM AM and WCFS FM have affiliations with CBS News Radio, CBS owned and operated television station WBBM TV Channel 2, and Bloomberg Radio. All right. WBBM AM is one of the oldest stations in Chicago. They signed on the air on February 6, 1924 in Lincoln, Illinois on 1330 AM. They would stay there until June 15th, 1927 when the station moved to 770. And then later to 780 in March of 1941. All right, as for WCFS FM, they signed on the air in February of 1948 as WLEY. The station would undergo 3 call sign changes, 3 sets of call letters, including WCKG from 1985 to 2007. That was the year they became WCFS FM. All right, WBBM AM is the third of 5 Class A clear channel stations in the Chicago area, broadcasting at 35,000 watts ERP during daytime hours and increasing to 42,000 watts ERP at night. WCFS-FM has a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 4,100 watts analog and 163 watts digital. Studios for both stations are at 2 Prudential Plaza, located at 180 North Stetson Avenue, Suite 1100 in Chicago. WBBM AM's transmitter is off of East Army Trail Road in Glendale Heights, which is shared with sister station WSCR. The WCFS transmitter is located in downtown Chicago atop the Willis Tower at 233 South Wacker Drive. Both stations are owned by Odyssey Incorporated and licensed to Odyssey License LLC. 820 is WCPT Willow Springs. 820 AM WCPT Chicago's Progressive Talk. So this is a progressive talk station with affiliations with AP Radio News, Westwood One, and Pacifica Radio. And this is also one of the oldest stations in the city, signing on the air on June 23rd, 1923 as WCBD on 870 kilohertz. In 1928, the station moved to 1080 and then to 1110 and later 820 in 1941. And they had an identity crisis. The station would undergo 9 call sign changes with 8 sets of call letters, including WAIT, in which they had two stints under from 1941 to 1986, and then from 2005 until 2007, when 820 became WCPT. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 5,800 watts during the day, 1,500 watts at night. And during daytime hours, they have an auxiliary ERP of 2,500 watts. Studios are located at 6012 South Pulaski Road in Chicago. The daytime transmitter is located in Chicago at their old studios at 5475 North Milwaukee Avenue. The daytime auxiliary transmitter and their nighttime transmitter are located off of Cleveland Avenue, south of US 6 in Joliet. WCPT, Chicago's Progressive Talk, is owned by NewsWeb Corporation, licensed by WYPA LLC. Next up is the fourth of our Class A Clear Channel stations, and that's 890 WLS-AM Chicago. 89 WLS with a news talk format affiliated with ABC News, the Weather Channel, Westwood One, and they also broadcast NASCAR races from the Motor Racing Network. And they also have a news partnership with ABC-owned and operated television station WLS-TV Channel 7. WLS signed on the air as WES on April 12, 1924 at 6:70 a.m. The station would then move to 8:70 a.m. and would share time with WENR on this frequency before moving to its present home at 890 in 1941. The station officially became WLS-AM in 1924, and this is the fourth of 5 Class A Clear Channel stations in Chicago, broadcasting full-time at 50,000 watts. Their studios are located on the 6th floor of the NBC Tower at 455 North Cityfront Parkway Drive in Chicago. The station's transmitter is located in Tinley Park, near the interchange of I-80 and US 45. 89 WLS is owned by Cumulus Media and licensed to Radio License Holdings, LLC. Programming is simulcast on sister station WLS FM 94.7 HD2, also licensed in Chicago. 930 and 950 is a straight simulcast of each other, and 1270 is also included in this. You've got WNTD Chicago on 950, WKBM Sandwich, Illinois on 930, and WWCA Gary, Indiana on 1270. WKBM and WNTD are known as Relevant Radio, while WWCA is known as Relevant Radio en Español. All right. WKBM and WNTD simulcast Relevant Radio's Catholic talk and teaching format, while WWCA, or Relevant Radio en Español, is Spanish Catholic Radio. Affiliations, of course, with both Relevant Radio and Relevant Radio en Español. All right. WKBM in Sandwich, Illinois on 930 signed on the air as WYG in May of 1986. Became WAUR in 1988, and then was purchased by Relevant Radio, and the station became WKBM in 2014. WNTD is one of the oldest radio stations in Chicago, signing on the air on April 7th, 1922 as WAAF. They would undergo 4 call sign changes with 4 sets of call letters until becoming WNTD in 1999. And WWCA Gary on 1270 signed on the air on December 7th, 1949. All three stations have Class B licenses with the Federal Communications Commission. WKBM operates at 2,500 watts during the day and 4,200 watts at night. WNTD operates at 1,000 watts days and 5,000 watts at night. And WWCA operates 24 hours a day at 1,000 watts. Programming for all 3 stations originate from Relevant Radio's headquarters in Green Bay, Wisconsin. WNTD, which is 950, they operate 2 transmitters. Their 1,000 watt daytime transmitter is located at 1500 South Worland Avenue in Chicago. Their 5,000 watt nighttime transmitter is at 2855 East 142nd Street in Chicago. The WKBM transmitter is off of Emmanuel Road in Kendall Township, while the WWCA transmitter is at 4970 Chase Street in Gary, Indiana. All 3 stations are owned by Relevant Radio and licensed by Relevant Radio Incorporated. WKBM's programming is relayed on translator station W256DU, Cloverdale, Illinois on 99.1. WWCA's programming is relayed on translator station W268DI, Gary, Indiana at 101.5 FM. And again, WNTD and WKBM largely simulcast each other. 1,000 is the last of our 5 Class A clear channel stations, and that's WMVP Chicago. branded either as ESPN 1000 or ESPN Chicago. This is a sports talk station and Chicago's home of ESPN Radio, and this is the new flagship station of the Chicago Bears. And I think they're also the flagship home of the Chicago White Sox. I did not write that in, though. WMVP signed on the air on June 19th, 1926 as WCFL at 610 kilohertz. They moved up a click to 620 in 1927, then to 970 in 1928, before landing on their current home at 1000 AM in 1941. The station became WLUP AM in 1987. Now, this would be the AM counterpart to the former WLUP FM at 97.9, and then WMVP with its long-running sports format in 1993. And as I said, this is the fifth and final Class A clear channel station in Chicago, broadcasting full-time at 50,000 watts. Their studios are located at the studios and offices of WLS-TV Channel 7 at 190 North State Street in Chicago. Their transmitter is at 139th Street in Downers Grove, Illinois. Previously owned by ESPN's parent company Disney, ESPN 1000 or ESPN Chicago, whichever you prefer, is owned by Good Karma Brands and licensed to Sports Radio Chicago, LLC. Programming is simulcast on WSHE 100.3 FM HD2 in Chicago, which is presently owned by Hubbard Broadcasting. All right. 1030 and 1300 are the same station. You've got WNVR Vernon Hills, Illinois on 1030 and WRDZ LaGrange, Illinois on 1300. Both stations are labeled as Polski Radio Chicago with a Polish format. WNVR signed on the air on March 1st, 1988, while WRDZ signed on the air on October 11th, 1950 as WTAQ. Call letter is presently being used on a Green Bay station. 1300 would become WRDZ in 1998. All right. So looking at this, WNVR Vernon Hills on 1030 has a Class D license with the FCC. Broadcasting at 10,000 watts during the day, 3,200 watts during critical hours, and only 120 watts at night. WRDZ LaGrange on 1300 operates at 4,500 watts during the day and 4,000 watts at night, and they have a Class B license with the FCC. Studios for both stations are located at either 5414 West Belmont Avenue in Chicago or 50 Turner Avenue in Elk Grove Village. The WNVR transmitter is off of Illinois Route 176 and Mount Thabor Road in Dorr Township, Illinois. While the WRDZ transmitter is located at 5731 West 120th Street in Alsip, Illinois. Both stations are owned by Walter Catawba and licensed to Polnet Communications Limited. WNVR's programming is relayed on translator station W296DA 107.1 FM Vernon Hills, and WRDZ's programming is relayed on two translator stations W276BM 103.1 FM, Tinley Park, Illinois, and W284DA 104.7 FM, Chicago. WRDZ is the former Chicago area affiliate of Radio Disney. Next up is 1050 WLIP, Kenosha, Wisconsin. Branded as AM 1050 WLIP, this is a full-service talk station affiliated with Fox News Radio, Premier Networks, Westwood One, and Learfield Sports. I'm not sure which team, but they are affiliated with Learfield Sports. They signed on the air on May 18, 1947. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 250 watts. Studios are located at 6170 West Grand Avenue, Suite 111 in Gurnee, Illinois. Their transmitter is at 8500 Green Bay Road or Wisconsin Route 31 in Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin. WLIP is owned by Alpha Media and licensed to Alpha Media License, LLC. 1080 is WNWI Oak Lawn, Illinois. This is an ethnic radio station affiliated with AP Radio. They signed on the air on New Year's Eve 1965. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting with 5,000 watts during daytime hours and 2,600 watts during nighttime hours. Studios and transmitter are both located at 934 West 138th Street in Riverdale, Illinois. WNWI is owned by Birace Broadcasting Corporation. 1110 is WXES Chicago. SNA Radio Chicago, featuring a Spanish Catholic format. This station was signed on the air initially by the Moody Bible Institute of Chicago as WMBI at 1080 kilohertz on July 28, 1926. And would stay under the ownership of Moody Bible Institute until 2021, when the station became WXES with its current Spanish Catholic format. The station would relocate to 1110 AM in 1941. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting during daytime hours at 4,200 watts. Programming originates from SNA Radio Studios at 20720 Marlin Street in Chatsworth, California. Their transmitter is located off of North Palazzo Drive and Westmoreland Avenue in Addison, Illinois. WXES, a daytime-only station required to sign off the air at local sunset, is owned by El Sembrador Ministries. That's the entity that owns SNA Radio. All right, stepping right along here. 1160 is WYLL Chicago, AM 1160 WYLL, featuring a Christian talk and teaching format. This station signed on the air as WJJD on October 13th, 1924, became WSCR in 1997, WXRT AM in 2000, and WYLL in 2001. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 50,000 watts full time, although they do not have Class A clear channel status. Studios are located at 25 Northwest Point Boulevard, Suite 400 in Elk Grove Village. Their daytime transmitter is in Des Plaines, Illinois, off the Tri-State Tollway or I-294 and Minor Street. The nighttime and auxiliary transmitter is located at 17304 Prime Boulevard in Lockport, Illinois, off of I-355, which I think is also a toll road. WYLL is owned by Salem Media Group and licensed to Salem Media of Massachusetts, LLC. 1180 is WSQR, Sycamore, Illinois. They're known as the Squirrel, and they play classic hits on this station, signing on the air on June 11, 1980 at 1560 a.m. before moving to 1180 in 2006. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting during daytime hours at 900 watts, and at night at only 1 watt, just one. The station's studios and mailing address is 2410 Sycamore Road, Suite C, DeKalb, Illinois 60115. The station's transmitter is on the 1500 block of North Main Street or Illinois Route 23 in Sycamore. WSQR The Squirrel is owned by Nelson Multimedia Incorporated, and their programming is relayed on 3 translator stations. W225CL Sycamore, Illinois on 92.9, W263BM DeKalb, Illinois on 100.5, and W273CZ Plano, Illinois on 102.5. 1200 is WRTO Chicago. TUDN Deportes Radio Chicago. Min 1200. This is a Spanish sports station, and they are the Spanish affiliate. They are the Spanish flagship stations for the Chicago Bears and the Major League Soccer team in the Windy City, the Chicago Fire, or as they commonly call them, Chicago Fire FC. They also broadcast Chicago Bulls, Cubs, White Sox, and Blackhawks games in Spanish. And again, this is one of 2 TUDN Deportes Radio Networks affiliates in Chicago. The other one is the station we'll be talking about next, so stay tuned. WRTO signed on the air as WOPA in January of 1990, became WLXX briefly, WVIV, and then WRTO in 2003. Okay, I think I messed up something here. Give me just a sec. So what was it, 1200? Because I forgot to write in the FCC license and the ERP of the station. Give me just a second, and I will relay that information to you. All right, here we go. Okay. Let's see. Scratch that. Okay. WRTO, according to the Federal Communications Commission, they have a Class B license. They broadcast at 20,000 watts effective radiated power during daytime hours and 4,500 watts during nighttime hours. All right, now we got that piece of information in, so we can continue this. Their studios are located at either 541 North Fairbanks Court in Chicago, or at 129 North Boger Drive in Arlington Heights. The station's transmitter is in Chicago at 247 West 127th Street. WRTO is owned by the Latino Media Network, LLC, and operated under a local marketing agreement by the Euphoria Audio Network. 1220 is WKRS, Waukegan, Illinois. This is also TUDN Deportes Radio with a Spanish sports format. They're affiliated, of course, with TUDN Radio, the Chicago Fire, and the Chicago White Sox. They signed on the air on September 25th, 1949. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting daytime hours at 1,000 watts and nighttime hours at 90 watts. Studios are at 1884 Plain Avenue in Aurora. Their transmitter is off of Illinois Route 120 or Belvedere Road and Ruth Wilcox Avenue in Waukegan. WKRS is owned by Alpha Media and licensed to Alpha Media License LLC. Short space next to them on 1230 is WJOB Hammond, Indiana. AM 1230 WJOB, featuring talk and brokered programming. Affiliated with Premier Network and the Regional Radio Sports Network. WJOB signed on the air in 1923 as WWAE and then became WJOB in 1940. All right, I got to check something else too because I didn't write the FCC license down for WJOB. So again, give me just one quick moment and I can relay that information to you. If my computer cooperates. All right, so we gotta go to Northwest Indiana. There we go. And then click 1230. And I can tell you now that WJOB Class C is a Class C station on 1230, and their FM translator station is a Class D license. All right. The AM station on 1230 operates at 1,000 watts, while their translator is at 250 watts. Studios are located at 7136/7146 Indianapolis Boulevard in Hammond, Indiana. Their transmitter is also in Hammond at 6405 Olcott Avenue. WJOB is owned by Vasquez Development, LLC, and programming is relayed on translator station W284C Hammond, Indiana on 104.7. Short space next to them on 1240 is WSBC Chicago, known as Access Radio Chicago, with ethnic brokered programming. This is one of the city's oldest stations, signing on in 1925. They have a Class C license with the FCC, broadcasting unlimited at 1,000 watts. Their studios are either located at 6012 South Pulaski Road or at 5475 North Milwaukee Avenue, both within Chicago city limits. But their transmitter is at 5475 North Milwaukee Avenue in Chicago. WSBC is owned by NewsWeb Corporation and licensed to WSBC LLC. 1280 is WBIG Aurora. AM 1280 WBIG, featuring talk programming, home shopping, and sports. They're affiliated with USA Radio Network, Fox Sports Radio, and it's the Fox Valley's home of the Chicago Bears and Chicago White Sox. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 1,000 watts during the day and 500 watts at night. Studios and transmitter are located at 620 Eola Road in Aurora. And the station is owned by William H. Pollock and licensed to All Rail Broadcasting, LLC. Programming is relayed on translator station W288EA Aurora at 105.5. 1330 is WKTA Evanston. Resonance Radio. This is a Russian formatted radio station. Signing on in 1953 as WEAW, the station would undergo 3 call sign changes with 3 sets of call letters until they became WKTA in 1990. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting at 5,000 watts during the day and 110 watts at night. Studios are located at 5414 West Belmont Avenue in Chicago. Their transmitter is near the end of Old Dundee Road, which is off I-294 or the Tri-State Tollway, and this is located in Northbrook, Illinois. WKTA is owned by Polnet Communications Limited. Programming is relayed on translator station W240DE Evanston at 95.9. Short space next to them at 1340 is WJOL Joliet. 1340 WJOL. This is a news, talk, and sports station affiliated with ABC News, Fox Sports Radio, Compass Media Networks, Genesis Communications Network, Premier Networks, and the USA Radio Network. The station's first sign-on is also the date the station was licensed by the FCC, and that was May 27th, 1925, and they signed on as WJBI and later became, I think that's WCIS. I can't read my own handwriting. And the station aired initially on 1400. It would move to 1390 in 1927, 1310 in 1928, before finding its current home 1340 in 1941. They have a Class C license with the FCC, broadcasting at 1,000 watts unlimited. Studios are at 2410 Caton Farm Road in Crest Hill, Illinois. Transmitters in Joliet off of Walnut Street near US 6. WJOL is owned by Alpha Media and licensed to Alpha Media Licensee, LLC. 1360 is WLBK DeKalb, Illinois. 1360 WLBK. This is a full-service news and talk station affiliated with CNN Radio, the SportsMap Radio Network, and is the flagship station of the Northern Illinois Huskies, based right there in DeKalb, Illinois. They also broadcast Chicago White Sox baseball, Chicago Bulls basketball, and Chicago Bears football. WLBK signed on the air on December 5th, 1947. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting at 1,000 watts during the day and 24 watts at night. Studios are located at 2410 Sycamore Road, Suite C in DeKalb. Transmitter is at 721 North 1st Street, also in DeKalb, Illinois. WLBK is owned by DeKalb County Broadcasters Incorporated, and their programming is relayed on translator stations W255BN 98.9 FM and W259CS 99.7 FM, both of which are licensed to DeKalb, Illinois. Short space next to them on 1370 is WLTH Gary, Indiana. Wealth Radio, of course, WLTH are in caps. This is African American Talk Radio, signing on the air on November 5th, 1950 as WGRY. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting at 1,000 watts during the day, but only 9 watts at night. Studios are located at 115 West 5th Avenue with transmitter, their day and night transmitters are in the same location at 2579 Mississippi Street. Both the studios and transmitters are located in Gary. WLTH is owned by WLTH Radio. 1390 is WGRB Chicago. Inspiration 1390, featuring an urban gospel format. This station signed on the air as WTAY on October 13th, 1923. They underwent 5 call sign changes with 5 sets of call letters, including WVON, which they used from 1975 to 1983, and WGCI AM from 1983 to 2004. Now, this would be the AM counterpart to co-owned WGCI FM 107.5. The station officially became WGRB in 2004. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting with an effective radiated power of 5,000 watts. Studios are located at the Illinois Center at 233 North Michigan Avenue, Suite 3000 in Chicago. Transmitter is also in Chicago at 8601 South Troy Street. WGRB is owned by iHeartMedia Incorporated, licensed to IHM Licenses, LLC. 1410 is WRMN, Elgin, Illinois. WRMN AM 1410. This is talk and shopping on this station. Affiliations are with Town Hall Radio News, Premier Networks, and Fox News Talk. This station signed on the air in 1949. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 1,000 watts ERP during the day and 1,300 watts ERP at night. Their station's studios are located at 14 Douglas Avenue in Elgin. The transmitter is at 370 Sundown Road in South Elgin. WRMN is owned by William H. Pollock and licensed to Elgin Community Broadcasting, LLC. Programming is relayed on translator station W4EJ 96.7 FM, Elgin, Illinois. Short space next to them at 1420 is WIMS, Michigan City, Indiana. WIMS AM 1420, 95.1 FM. This is a classic hits and news talk format, or should I say a classic hits and news talk hybrid, signing on the air on August 10th, 1947. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 5,000 watts during the day and night. Their studios and transmitter are at 685 East 1675 North in Michigan City. WIMS is owned by Gerard Media, LLC, and programming is relayed on 3 translator stations. The source of the station's brand is 95.1 W236BD, Michigan City. Their programming is also relayed on W272BZ, Portage, Indiana at 102.3 and W294CY, Valparaiso, Indiana at 106.7. Short space next to WIMS on 1430 is WEEF, Deerfield, Illinois. This is a multicultural ethnic station signing on the air on August 15th, 1963, initially as WEEF. They would use two sets of call letters in the 70s before returning to WEEF in 1979. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 1600 watts during the day, 750 watts at night. Studios are at 5414 West Belmont Avenue, Chicago. Their transmitter is on Old Dundee Road near East Dundee Road, Illinois, Route 68. And the Tri-State Tollway, or I-294, and that's in Northbrook. WEEF is owned by Polnet Communications Limited. Programming is relayed on translator station W256 DC Deerfield at 99.1. 1450 is WRLL Cicero, Illinois. They feature a Spanish variety format, signing on the air on 1450 in 2006. They have a Class C license with the FCC, broadcasting full-time at 1,000 watts. Studios are located at 800 South Wells Street. Transmitter is at 3350 South Kedzie Avenue, both in Chicago. WRLL is owned by Midway Broadcasting. 1450 previously was a shared frequency in Chicago, shared with ethnic station WCEV until that station signed off the air in 2021, which made WRLL a 24-hour station. $14.80 is WDYS Somonauk, Illinois. America's Best Music. They play a mix of soft oldies and adult standards, affiliated with Westwood One. They signed on the air on November 11, 1961 as WGSB. They became WFXW in 1980 and WSPY in 2002 before becoming the current WDYS in 2021. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 250 watts during the day and only 10 watts at night. Their studios are located at 2410 Sycamore Road, Suite C in DeKalb, Illinois. Transmitter is on Fraser Road in Plano, Illinois. WDYS is owned by Nelson Multimedia Incorporated, and their programming is relayed on translator station W268DB, 101.5 FM, Yorkville, Illinois. Short space next to them on 1490 is WEUR, Oak Park, Illinois. This is Polish talk and ethnic programming on this station. Signing on the air on October 7th, 1950 as WOPA. They would become WBMX in 1984. WPNA in 1987. WEBS has its call sign during their construction permit, but switched to WOPA upon sign-on. They have Class C license with the FCC, broadcasting at 1,000 watts unlimited. Their studios are at 5711 North Milwaukee Avenue in Chicago. Transmitter is 408 South Oak Park Avenue in Oak Park. WEUR is owned by Daniela Wojcik and licensed to CSW WII LLC. A lot of letters there, don't you agree? Short space next to them on 1500 is two stations. The first is WAKE Valparaiso, Indiana, which is currently silent. They were known as Oldies 1500 WAKE with an Oldies format. They signed on as WAYK in 1964 and became WAKE in 1966. WAKE operates with a Class D license from the FCC, broadcasting at 1,000 watts during the day and 25 watts at night. Studio location is unknown. It's possibly located in Valparaiso or somewhere in Northwest Indiana. Their transmitter is in Valparaiso off Sager Road. Current owner of WAKE is Marion Williams. No relation to me, of course. And the station is presently off the air as of recording this video. As for the station on 1500 that is operational, that's WPJX Zion, Illinois, also known as Rebel Radio, featuring a heavy metal format. The station signed on the air as WZBN on September 19, 1967. They underwent 6 call sign changes using 6 sets of call letters across 24 years until becoming WPJX in 2001. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting at 250 watts days, and then at night, their ERP drops off dramatically to only 2 watts. I'm unsure about the studio location, but I wrote down 5414 West Belmont Avenue in Chicago, and there's a question mark next to that. Their transmitter is at 40805 Lester Lane in Wadsworth, Illinois. WPJX is owned by Polnet Communications Limited. Programming is relayed on translator station W223C Zion, Illinois on 92.5 FM. Short space next to them on 1510 is WWHN Joliet, Comfortable Radio, featuring an urban adult contemporary format. They signed on the air on April 10th, 1964 as WJRC and then became WWHN in 1987. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting at 1,000 watts during the day. And 600 watts during critical hours. Studios and transmitter are both located at 530 Adelia Avenue in Joliet. WWHN is owned by Hawkins Broadcasting Company. Their programming is simulcast on WWHN FM 88.9 in Irondale, Illinois. I don't have any specs for that station. And relayed on translator station W268CY, Tinley Park, Illinois at 101.5 FM. WWHN is a daytime only station and must sign off at local sunset on 1510. As do our next station, 1530 WCKG, Elmhurst, Illinois. Sportsbook Radio Chicago. This is a sports talk and sports wagering station and is the Chicago affiliate of Fox Sports Radio. This station signed on the air as WKDC on October 10th, 1974. 20 years later, in 1994, they became WJJG before becoming the present WCKG in 2012. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting with an ERP of 760 watts during daytime hours. Studio location is unknown. They're probably located in either Elmhurst or Chicago. Their mailing address is P.O. Box 3162, Oak Brook, Illinois 60522. Their transmitter is located near the interchange of the Tri-State Tollway I-294 and the Chicago-Kansas City Expressway I-88 at 546 Harvard Street in Elmhurst. WCKG is owned by Arthur Dubiel and licensed to DePage Radio LLC. WCKG is a daytime-only station and must sign off the air at sundown on 1530. However, their programming is relayed 24 hours a day on translator station W272DQ 102.3 FM in Elmhurst. Short space next to WCKG at 1540 is another daytimer, and that's WLOI LaPorte, Indiana. Rock 106.5 LaPorte's Rock Station. This is a classic rock station which signed on the air on the same day the license was granted by the FCC, and that's September 24th, 1948. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting only during daytime hours at 250 watts. Their studios are located at 1700 Lincoln Way Place, Suite S. And their transmitter is at the end of Parr Avenue off of Holton Road, both located in LaPorte, Indiana. WLOI is owned by Spoon River Media, LLC. Programming is relayed 24 hours a day on translator station W293DR LaPorte station and must sign off the air at sundown on 1540. Short space next to WLOI on 1550 is WAUR, Somonauk, Illinois. They play country music on this station, signing on as WCSJ in 1964 and became WAUR in 2022. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting at 380 watts during the day and only 6 watts at night. Studios are located at 219 West Washington Street in Morris, Illinois. Transmitter is on Fraser Road in Plano, Illinois, same tower used by WDYS. WAUR is owned by Nelson Multimedia Incorporated and licensed to Grundy County Broadcasters Incorporated. Programming is relayed on translator station W256EC, 99.1 FM, Oswego, Illinois. Short space next to them on 1560 is WRIN, Rensselaer, Indiana. The Bear Country, 1560, featuring a classic country format affiliated with Westwood One. Station signed on the air on September 14, 1963. They have a Class D license with the FCC, broadcasting at 1,000 watts during daytime hours and 500 watts during critical hours, which is 2 hours before local sunrise and 2 hours after local sunset. Or rather, 2 hours after local sunrise and 2 hours before local sunset. That's critical hours. Studios are at 560 West Amsler Road in Rensselaer. Mailing address is P.O. Box D, Rensselaer, Indiana, 47978. Their transmitter is at 2430 North McKinley Avenue, also in Rensselaer. WRIN is owned by Brothers Broadcasting Corporation. WRIN is also a daytime-only station required to sign off the air at night by FCC law. However, they operate 24-hour translator station W283CO 104.5 FM, Rensselaer, Indiana, which relays 1560's programming even after 1560 physically signs off for the evening. Short space next to them at 1570, we have 3 stations left, including this one, WBGX, Harvey, Illinois. Big Gospel Express, 1570 AM. Now, Express here is spelled XPRESS. This is a gospel music station, signing on as WBEE in 1955. They became WMNN and WBEE in 1989, and the current WBGX came into play in 2003. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 1,100 watts during the day and 500 watts at night. Studios are located at 5956 South Michigan Avenue in Chicago. Their transmitter is at Radio Station Park, which is at the corner of West 157th Street and Rockwell Avenue in Markham, Illinois. WBGX Big Gospel Express 1570 is owned by Great Lakes Radio Chicago, LLC. Programming is relayed on translator station W240EI Harvey, Illinois at 95.9. 1590 is WCGOD in 1970, WONX in 1979, and WCGO in 2009. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 10,000 watts during the day, 2,500 watts at night. Their studios are at 2100 Lee Street in Evanston. Their transmitters in the 3500 block of Howard Street in Skokie, Illinois. WCGO is owned by Pollock Broadcasting / William Pollock and licensed by Evanston Broadcasting, LLC. Their programming is relayed on translator station W240EH Evanston at 95.9. And the final station on the AM dial is 1690 WVON Berwyn, Illinois. AM 1690 WVON, the voice of the nation. This is an African American oriented talk station affiliated with Premier Networks. Their first sign-on as WVON was 1963. First sign-on at 1690 is October 2003 as WHTE. This is a call sign that dates back to 1998. They became RLL in 2003 and WVON in 2006. They have a Class B license with the FCC, broadcasting at 10,000 watts during daytime hours and 1,000 watts at night. Their studios are located inside the Illinois Center at 233 North Michigan Avenue, Suite 3000 in Chicago. Their transmitter is near the northeast corner of North Kedzie Avenue and West 87th Street at 8558 Troy Street in Chicago. WVON is owned by iHeartMedia and operated by Midwest Broadcasting Company and is licensed by IHM Licenses, LLC. Programming is relayed on translator station W252AW 98.3 FM Chicago, and that is a look at the AM radio stations in Chicagoland area. Now, we are not done with this market imagination because we will be running through the FM stations real soon. I'm about to go back into info gathering mode and write in all the non-commercial stations on FM. And as I said, there's about 50 of them. So that's going to take a minute. I'll be up with that video soon. And then we'll run through the commercial band. We'll do the lower end in part 2 and the high end in part 3. So again, stay tuned as we continue our look at the Chicago radio market. Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching and happy listening.